Ibrahim Traoré was reviewing routine military reports when he discovered something that made his blood freeze. Israeli operatives had been conducting secret operations in Burkina Faso. For years, what he did next would shake the Middle East. But first, let me tell you how a simple security briefing became the most dangerous discovery of his presidency. The morning coffee sat cooling, forgotten on Traoré's desk, as Defense Minister Kabor burst through the heavy oak doors. Sweat glistened on his dark skin, despite the air conditioning humming overhead. In his trembling hands, a classified folder bore the red stamp "Urgent Eyes Only, Mr. President," he gasped, his voice cracking with urgency. "Adapted something during last night's communication sweep. This changes everything." The leather chair creaked as Traoré leaned forward, studying his old friend's face. Kabor's hands hadn't shaken like this since their military academy days, when incoming mortar fire had tested their courage. "Show me," Traoré commanded quietly. "Wait until you hear what those reports revealed." The folder's contents made the air in the room feel thick. Oppressive encrypted radio transcripts, technical analysis sheets, and most chilling of all, it's that pointed to locations inside Burkina Faso. But these weren't from the usual suspects. The metadata: a header read, source, Tel Aviv, destination, to pull assets. Burkina Faso territory. Kabor Traoré whispered, his voice barely audible. "How long have these transmissions been active?" His friend's Adam's apple bobbed as he swallowed hard. "To our analysis, sir, 3 years, maybe longer." The words hit like physical blows. For 3 years, while Traoré had been building his presidency on principles of sovereignty and independence, foreign operatives had been conducting secret operations under his nose. But what happened next will terrify you. The first decoded message appeared on the secure tablet screen, its cold bureaucratic language masking a devastating reality. Target: Alpha confirmed gold mine. Production data transmitted. Local officials unaware of monitoring equipment installation. Traoré's military training kicked in, but couldn't stop his hands from clenching into fists. Someone was stealing Burkina Faso's most sensitive economic data. Target: bait. Operational presidential communications intercepts running smoothly. Subject unaware of security breach. The tablet nearly slipped from his grasp. They had been listening to his private conversations with his wife, his children, his most trusted advisors. Target: Gamma requires immediate attention. Iranian weapons shipment detected. Recommend intervention before delivery. Sir Kabor's voice cut through the shock. "There's something else, something personal." Little did he know this was just the beginning. Deep in the intelligence files was a document that made Traoré's world collapse, a psychological profile labeled Subject Ibrahim Traoré, Threat Assessment Critical. The file, dated 2 months before he'd even taken office, analyzed his anti-Western tendencies and potential for Russian alignment with clinical precision. But the section that froze his blood was titled Neutralization Options. They had been planning contingencies for his removal before he'd even become president. "There's more," said his voice heavy with reluctance, "about the source of these leaks." He handed over another file, this one containing a photograph that shattered Traoré's trust in everything he'd built. Colonel David Urego, his personal security advisor, the man who knew his children's names in dinner at his family table, shaking hands with a stranger at a cafe in downtown Ouagadougou. The stranger's identification read: Eli Roth, Mossad operations officer. But wait, even darker memories flooded back with nauseating clarity. Ouagadougou asking casual questions about meeting schedules, his insistence on accompanying trial to security, sensitive discussions with Russian advisors, his convenient absences during Chinese investment meetings for 8 months. Israel had been living inside Traoré's inner circle, recording every conversation, analyzing every decision, preparing for every contingency. "How many people know about this?" Traoré asked, his voice steady despite the storm raging inside. "Just us," replied, "and the 2 intelligence officers who made the discovery. I sworn them to secrecy." The president nodded, his mind racing. If Ouagadougou was compromised, how many others were feeding information to Tel Aviv? How deep did this penetration go? The truth he discovered would change if knew everything. What they uncovered over the next 48 hours defied comprehension. Hidden surveillance equipment in 3 locations across Burkina Faso, a telecommunications intercept station routing all internet traffic through Israeli servers, an assassination list containing the names of 3 local religious leaders who had spoken against Israel's policies in Gaza. Those leaders were already dead, their murders blamed on jihadist groups. But the intercepted communications told a different story: targets eliminated without local attribution, operations successful. They killed our people, Boer whispered, staring at the evidence spread across the conference table. On our soil, in our name. Traoré's response came from somewhere deep and primal, a place where presidential protocol held no sway. Then they've declared war on Burkina Faso. What Ibrahim Traoré did next shocked the entire world. The raids began at exactly 3:47 a.m. Coordinated strikes on all 3 Israeli operational sites. Traoré personally led the team targeting the compound near the capital, unwilling to trust such a sensitive operation to anyone else. What they found in that nondescript building exceeded his worst nightmares. Operational Mossad station, disguised as a telecommunications company, assassination equipment in sealed cases, false identity documents, and in a reinforced vault, thousands of files detailing Project New Canaan, Israel's continental surveillance network spanning 12 African nations. But the most damaging discovery was a recent operational update outlining plans for Traoré's own elimination scheduled for the following month. Method: helicopter malfunction during routine inspection, and planning his murder with the same clinical officers. The consequences of this discovery would shake 3 governments 72 hours later. Traoré stood before global media with captured Israeli surveillance equipment displayed on tables behind him. Were steady now, his voice carrying the weight of absolute moral izzet of Burkina Faso. And the watching world, he began: today we expose state terrorism conducted by Israel against African sovereignty. He held up intercepted communications, their Hebrew text translated into stark English, while Israel claims to fight terrorism. These documents prove they have been conducting systematic terrorism against African nations who dare support Palestinian rights. The evidence was overwhelming: satellite imagery of the surveillance stations, communications between Tel Aviv and operatives in Ouagadougou, video testimony from captured agents, technical specifications of assassination equipment within hours. The story dominated international headlines. Israel's immediate denials rang hollow against the mountain of documentation. More damaging still, similar evidence began emerging from Mali, Niger, and Chad. Burkina Faso wasn't alone. If you think that was shocking, wait until you see what happened next. The transformation that followed was unprecedented in African politics. Within 6 months, 12 nations had simultaneously expelled Israeli intelligence operations. The African Union passed its strongest resolution in decades, condemning systematic espionage and assassination programs conducted by foreign powers. But the personal cost was devastating. 3 assassination attempts targeted Traoré in the following months. Colonel Idrao was found dead in his cell, officially ruled suicide and execution to prevent testimony. The betrayal had cut deeper than any physical wound. During long nights in the presidential residence, now swept daily for surveillance devices, Traoré wrestled with questions that haunted him. How many others had been compromised? Could he trust anyone completely? Is true sovereignty even possible in a world where foreign powers felt entitled to African soil? Yet he never wavered. 1 year after the exposed, standing at the same podium where he'd first revealed Israeli operations, Traoré addressed transformation his courage had sparked. They told us the price of independence would be too high, he said, his voice carrying across the packed auditorium and into homes across Africa. They warned that challenging powerful nations would bring consequences. He gestured to the flags of 12 African nations now flying behind him. But the price of remaining silent, allowing foreign powers to murder our citizens, steal our resources, and plan our assassinations, that price was higher still. The audience rose as one, applause thundering through the hall and spilling into the streets of Ouagadougou, where thousands had gathered to watch. Today Africa stands taller because one small nation refused to remain silent about foreign terrorism conduct. That courage has awakened a continent as investigations continued across Africa. More Israeli operations emerged from the shadows. What had begun with Traoré's routine security briefing had become the continent's greatest counterintelligence victory since independence. The man who had accidentally discovered foreign surveillance in his reports had ignited an African awakening that would forever change the continent's relationship with those who sought to control it from afar, and that courage was worth every price they had to pay.